morning, Lisa. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm living my new normal, which is very much the same as my old normal. Feels like Groundhog Day all over again.
Well, I've been
It's-
seeing your beautiful meals that you've been posting on social media. You've definitely changed your diet a little bit, at least, right?
yeah, I so to digress for a second, we will talk about tennis at some point in time during this.
Yeah.
I have been eating seafood about 3 times a week, chicken one or two other times a week, and then salad the rest of the time. I have had one hamburger. Took a trip to Dallas to see eye doctor the other day and did have Chick-fil-A, so I had, a chicken sandwich, grilled chicken sandwich, but I had bread. So I think I've had like four English muffins and four slices of bread and one bun when I had the Chick-fil-A. But wow, food can actually be tasty without it being greasy and heavy and all of those things. Um, but
And you've been
this
eating the spectrum, your plates are rainbow. I've been seeing it. You're doing great. I'm happy to see
yeah.
that.
So
Yeah.
trying to do all of those things, to eating things that came out of the ground naturally,
There you go.
colorful. It's been interesting. Haven't figured out what to snack on yet. I got to admit, the bad thing that is happening. We have these little things that are kind of like ice cream sandwiches. They're called skinny cows,
Oh,
and
yeah, those are good.
I'm having like a skinny cow a day. So that part I've got to figure out how to do carrots without ranch dress, because dipping carrots in ranch dressing probably wasn't good. So
Edamame. Edamame is good.
I'm not sure I've seen it. I'm not sure I know what it is. But
Soybeans in little pods, and yeah, you can get them at the market.
soybeans,
Next trip.
chickpeas, all that.
Yeah.
So I guess hummus is chickpeas and
Yeah.
all those things that are
All
supposed to
good.
be good for you. I guess I'll eat more of that. How you doing?
They're good. I'm great. Tennis is opening up, and I mean, this is all good. I still haven't gone out personally to play, though. I did go out yesterday and hit against my garage door, which I'm sure my neighbors were thrilled about because we have a metal garage door. So it's a bit loud and the ball doesn't bounce really well off it, but it did feel good to have a tennis racket in my hand. And it felt weird, but it felt good. I know lots of people out playing. I think it's, if you feel comfortable doing that, more power to you as long as you're following all the safety guidelines, which we now know there are lots of guidelines in place. We've seen the signage USTA's put out, some great graphics, and, different facilities around the country are using different graphics to remind their players to maintain social distancing, to wash their hands, all those things. Bring your own towel, bring your own water, all that stuff. So I think it's great. Again, I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to play, and which worries me a little bit because I have to say, like, who's going to want to go out and hit with me by the time I'm ready to get out there? All of my cronies have been out hitting, and I'm going to be so rusty. But hopefully, somebody will take pity on me.
Yeah, they'll be back in form and you'll be rusty. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Looking online, because my daughter used to play soccer and futsal. And so I have some futsal programs that I follow a little bit. And there was a video
Right.
out depicting what the first week of practice will look like back at futsal. And everybody who touches the ball trips over it and falls over backwards. And
Yeah.
it was pretty comical.
Uh,
Um,
we're about to have a bark fest. Sorry about this. I
no
don't know if you
worries.
are picking it
Somebody
up.
commented last week not to worry about the dogs, so we won't worry about the dogs. We'll just
Okay,
keep on
good.
rolling. Um, Texas, just day before yesterday, the governor announced that May 31st, camps are back. So he actually opened up
All
childcare
day camps.
immediately. So as of Tuesday, he said childcare is a thing again, including boys and girls clubs. So letting those go back into business because people can't go back to work if they don't have a place for their child.
Yeah.
And then that camps could be a thing come the 31st of May. So come June, camps will open back up. I'm not sure what that will look like for tennis programs if we're going to go back to, and I don't mean us, Austin Tennis Academy, because we've set forth protocols for the summer which mirror almost identically what we were doing into the spring, although maybe even a little bit stricter to make sure that people weren't being too close together. But if
So
you were
no
one of those
camps at ATA?
programs, yeah, not called camps. So, we
Okay.
made a specific decision that that word camp, the connotation associated with it, wasn't going to be good for summer.
Okay.
And we've essentially recoined them for what they are, which is summer semis. So it is still two kids on a court,
Gotcha.
with a coach for every couple of courts. And so it's just, it's semi on a court, two people. So every once in a while, maybe three. But that's the deal. The number of kids on a red court, that was the one that got a little bit challenging, because having six nets, but it's 12 kids on six netted courts on one court, court turned sideways, and then six little red courts, and two kids per red court, so 12 kids on that one
Okay.
space, but still pretty good. 60 feet long by 18
Yeah,
feet wide. That's still pretty good space between two. Um, I've
sure.
seen somebody in Massachusetts put out a visual guide for how to set up different numbers of people per court, and how to do like some things which are 2-on-1s, and where do you have two people versus one, so that it still maintains certain distance between the people on the different courts as well as within the single court. I thought that
Hmm.
was an interesting piece of content and different than what I had seen come out from USTA and other places. I don't know what kind of great guidance you've come across or people have sent you.
I mean, same. It's, there are various rules being posted, and as I've talked about before, the club I belong to here in Orange County sends out regular communications, and they have had to adjust some of the rules and guidelines as the club has opened back up. They're talking about bringing their fitness classes back, but outdoors only, to maintain social distancing. And it's still, there are singles and doubles being played at my club, and small groups happening. And but yeah, I'm just not there, but I know there are events taking place, junior comp events as well as professional events. The ITA, I tweeted something out last week, and the ITA was quick to respond that their summer circuit is still on go as of today, and that'll happen in July. So we still don't know what that's going to look like, because typically the ITA summer circuit is held on college campuses, and we don't know if college campuses are going to be open, right? There's still a lot of conversation happening around that, and I read a daily newsletter about college sports and what's happening at the various campuses with regard to things like football coming back, and can you have football if the campus isn't open for students in general. And there's all sorts of conversation happening, but I think the mindset now is, how do we bring all of these things back and make sure everybody's staying safe and staying socially distanced, and reduce the risk of contracting COVID-19 as much as we possibly can. So I'm glad to see those conversations happening. I am, trying to loosen up myself and get my head around going back out into public. I haven't done it yet, but I've done, things like, I've been around my children, which I didn't do for many, many weeks, and now I have done that. Um, so, I mean, I think it's good. We've got lots of professional events happening. Obviously, we started with the one in Germany and the one in Florida. We've had now multiples in those two areas. Atlanta hosted a men's professional event last week and is doing a women's one this week. And Southern California had a pro event over the weekend that, and all of these are no spectators. Most of them have been short format, though the Atlanta event played full sets, full 2 out of 3 sets using no ad scoring, but still full 2 out of 3. Whereas the other events that I've seen are using more of a fast four format where they play sets to four, also with no ad, but they're, may have one chair umpire, but no linesmen on the court, no ball kids, obviously. And the stands are completely empty, which for players who are used to playing at the futures or challengers level, that's not so different for them. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, sad but true. What will be interesting for me is to see the junior events that are happening now, and I know there have been several in Atlanta already. There are some facilities in Atlanta that never shut down at all and continue to have events during the lockdown. So I will refrain from commenting on that, but suffice it to say that now that things are open, and allowed to be open in Atlanta, I think we're going to see a lot more junior events happening. They'll be small, hopefully, but we got word this week that the Midwest section has canceled its sectional closed. The Southern section has rescheduled its sectional closed, and it'll be interesting to see
Yeah,
if
ours
if
isn't
parents are
happening.
willing to travel.
Hmm.
Yeah. What? Sorry, what'd you say?
No, I said the Texas one isn't happening, or very well may happen in the fall sometime. That's
Yeah.
been rescheduled. I'm not sure as how that will play out because generally that role of the sectional closed has been to qualify people into nationals or the major
Right.
point. But with clay courts being canceled, also, um, we're now down to August events, so hard courts, Kalamazoo, San Diego, et al.
And are
Um,
those going to happen? And if they do, I mean, here's the big question, right? If those events happen, which of course we want them to happen, but how do they happen? How do kids qualify in? How are kids mentally and physically prepared to compete at a national level if they haven't had opportunities to compete locally for 3, 4 months? What happens fitness wise to them? Are they going to be able to handle the heat and the humidity and the stress of competition? How do they get to the event? Where do they stay once they get there? Are people comfortable hopping on a plane, staying in a hotel, eating in restaurants, in an environment that's not their home environment? So there's so many components to all of this working. And I know these conversations are happening at USTA. They're talking about what it will look like if these events come back. But in the meantime, how do kids get ready to compete at that level?
so I believe we're going to see a lot of different trial and error things because we as a society, the world is all in this moment of we're in the unknown and so we're trying different things. So different places are opening in different ways, restaurants trying different things. You see a lot of plexiglass going up in different places where people need to be together or trying to make it so that we can maximize space usage still to make businesses viable. um, I know that the economics of a tennis court having two people on a court is pretty hard if you're figuring what that revenue per court per hour is going to be. Having tennis events, which are much smaller, make it hard because running tournaments isn't a real profitable business, anyways. And so, if it's become even more marginal, will those providers of tournaments continue to do so? And at the level that they do. So there are some people who run lots of tournaments, right? And that's
Right.
kind of almost their main business. But if they can't do what they need to do financially with those events anymore, will they continue to run them at all? And what will that shakeout be? And I think we don't really have any idea. And I suspect as we start looking all the way through the collegiate calendar and what that looks like, it's very
Yeah, it's a
unsure,
lot.
right? Yeah, because
Well,
college,
and I
nothing
think
looks the same. California's not having
no.
in-person classes. Some of the places are now saying
Just the
they will
Cal
have,
States, just the Cal States
right,
have
but I believe
closed.
Stanford also.
Oh, did
Yeah,
they? I hadn't
yeah.
seen that.
I
Okay.
But then there are others who are now saying that they're only going to have in class or in bricks and mortar classes up until sometime the early part of November, because of fear that that next wave will
The
come
next
as
wave.
winter and
Yeah.
flu comes on, and minimizing the amount of kids home for Thanksgiving, back to class, home for Christmas, back to class, and that travel being what could take a hot spot and spread it to many places. So,
Right.
there's now talk of a college might have a very small fall semester or smaller, and then not come back to bricks and mortar until spring. And then what does that look like if we're talking about the spring season for tennis, yet they're not having people back on campus yet?
Yeah. Yeah, and let's be clear, typically tennis competition starts in January with non-conference play and the ITA kickoff events and all of that. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Personally, I feel like this is a great opportunity for UTR to step in, and they are stepping in and really helping those who would like to put on tennis competitions to do so in a way that works, that keeps it small, that maintains social distancing, that allows people to be in an environment where they feel safe and comfortable. And, so I think that's great. I think, UTR has been poised for a situation that we find ourselves in right now. They've been waiting for this to happen where
Well, maybe
USTA
not
events are
this,
being
but
canceled.
something. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
not this, but I'm saying um, this type of environment where, I mean, this is what they've been trying to promote all along: localized play, not doing it necessarily by age or gender, but rather by tennis level. So, holding events where boys and girls are competing against one another. It's not necessarily, a 12 and under, 14 and under, et cetera, but rather, a UTR 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, like that, so that players of like levels are on the court together, regardless of age and gender. And
And
this
why not,
environment
right?
right now seems perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it
So
seems perfect.
tennis, the only sport which, at the very highest levels of the game, men and women compete on the same court already. It just happens to be mixed doubles.
Mixed
But
doubles. Yeah.
now taking it and expanding it to mixed singles, why why not, right? Other than maybe the traditionalists want to believe that we don't want to do something because that's how it's always done. I hear many saying that for tennis to live going forward, it's going to need to re-examine everything, in particular the scoring format, to make it
Mhm.
um, more appealing. And you know, at the pro level, there's some talk of, if we make it short in scoring, then we can expand the draws. Instead of having qualifying, take those people that were in qualifying and put them all into a main draw, and start having a back draw at the pro level, which there's not ever been, and nor has there
No.
been at the ITF junior level. But there is at least some public discussion of maybe that's the way forward with the sport.
Which,
Crazy times.
I am one of those traditionalists. I hate messing with the scoring format. I am not a fan of no ad. I like how I grew up playing and have watched tennis my whole life, and I want that to continue. But I do understand we're in a different place now. And what's more important? To me, the most important thing is that the sport survive and thrive. So, whatever we need to do right now to make that happen, I think we do. And, kudos to people like Playsight, who are televising some of these pro events, or not televising, but streaming these pro events. ESPN3 is streaming some of these pro events. And I love that. Tennis Channel, of course, also is streaming. It, it's it looks different from what we have known, but at least there is tennis happening, and I think that's a positive, and let's hold on and build from that.
So how long is it going to take before people get used to watching sports without the roar of the crowd? Because that seems like it's going to be what we're dealing with at for the moment. And
Did you watch the car race? I didn't watch it,
I did
but
not. I did not.
yeah. So apparently, I don't even know what it was. If it was NASCAR or I don't know car racing, but there was some big car race that was televised or that went on with no fans. So it was just the drivers and I guess their pit crews and
Mm-hmm.
whoever is necessary to keep them safe out there. I did not watch it, but I'm curious, how people enjoyed that. I have, though, watched some of these streaming tennis events where there's nobody in the stands. And like I said, it doesn't look any different or very little different from watching a futures streaming match. So it didn't bother me. That didn't bother me. I wonder how the athletes feel about it.
And I guess that's the question. Our producer just kind of gave me a little piece while we were talking of this of the Belmont Stakes horse race is going to be
Oh,
done
yeah,
without
right.
people watching. And so what is that like? I'm not sure as the athletes being the horses respond to the crowd one way or another because they certainly train without crowds. Um, but yeah, what will it look like as we go into all of these events, and will that be the new normal? Will they just adjust camera angles and things to where you're not, showing the celebrities in the
Yeah.
crowd, um, or do they stream in somehow through some technology celebrities who are
Crowd
watching
noise.
from home and then yeah showing different people as they're jumping up in their living rooms, right? That we've all seen commercials that look like that, somebody
I
watching
am
a big
guilty.
game and the popcorn flies and all
Yeah.
of that. Does that become a normal part of broadcasting going forward, and how will that be for tennis people, for junior tennis, even at the very biggest events? I think it's not a big deal. One of the things that I've
Yeah.
always lamented about at things like a sectional closed or a Kalamazoo or something like that is the very first couple of days of the tournament, there are people everywhere.
It's
And
packed.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of people watching. And when you get down to the finals and the best matches, there's nobody left except for the people that are
Right.
playing in their little family. So we're back to that situation anyways. It just the
Yeah.
tournament starts the same way that it finishes and somewhat consistent throughout. Um,
So, I mean, what's cool to me about all of this is there's so many opportunities for creative entrepreneurial people right now, right? And we're seeing that. We're seeing this crop up, where, for junior tennis, we're going to have an app that allows for check-in and score reporting, right? We're going to have that
Without
to
doubt.
maintain social distancing. So I don't know if it exists. I know there are plenty of apps out there, and I'm sure those developers are working hard to incorporate some sort of system for tournament play. We're going to have, some sort of scorekeeping device that doesn't involve players touching, the little cards on the end of the court to flip the games every time. We have those already, but we're going to have to incorporate that into our competitive events so that we maintain social distancing again and we don't risk cross contaminating one another. Um, I suspect there are going to be other types of I forget my Latin, but where players can refill their water bottles without with a no touch system, where they can hang their towel or put their gear, and where things are going to be marked clearly so that players don't overstep each other. Sorry, I'm like getting blinded here. I'm going to close this a second. There we go. Sorry about that, producer Kim. I know that just drove you nuts for me to go out of frame, but that light was in my eyes. But I do think there are all sorts of really cool opportunities right now. And I think we're going to see people stepping up to the challenge. And we're going to see all kinds of new sports related businesses and apps and paraphernalia crop up, as we've already seen with the cottage industry with the cloth masks, right?
Yep.
So, Americans are known for being creative and stepping up to those challenges. I know other countries have the same thing where, you always have people who are willing to take a look at the current situation, project forward, and understand what is going to be needed if we're going to resume some semblance of normalcy. And so I'm excited to see all that. I think it's going to be interesting.
I think we're going to see a lot over the next period of time. The big question that will be looming in my head is, once there's herd immunity, there's a vaccine, there's all of these things, do these little cottage industries which spring up in the innovation which happens, will somebody flip the switch and say, okay, let's go back to how it always was, or will some or all of these things stick for the long haul? And I
Yeah.
guess we won't know, but I
No,
think the thing that we are going to know is that when we're back here this time next week, it's going to look different than it looks right now, because that seems to have held
absolutely.
true for the last couple of months.
Yeah, yeah. Every week it's something different. So it's fun to talk about and it's fun to watch what's happening. And I'm get trying to gear myself up for getting back out on the court. I'm itching to do it. I'm just we'll see. But I sure am enjoying watching the streaming that's happening and seeing people's photos. As long as they're socially distanced, it's those photos of people in clusters that make my skin crawl. And please stop doing that, people. don't cluster. Let's remember that this virus isn't fixed yet. It's not gone yet, and let's stay safe out there.
We'll be back next week, and we hope that you will join us. If you'd like to see what the progression has looked like throughout this pandemic, you can go to the Parenting Aces or the Tennis 2020 YouTube channels that you can look back through the past. I think this is episode 17. So a lot has changed
Wow,
over the period we've been doing this, Lisa, and we're going to be back again next week and doing it some more.
absolutely.
Have a great week. Talk to you then.
You too. Thanks. See ya.